Welcome, Greek U Nation, to episode number 253 of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. I'm your host, Mike Eilon, CEO of Greek University. I'm a speaker and a two-time author. Go and pick up our second book. It's called From Letters to Leaders, Redefining New Member Education and Leveraging Belonging to Eliminate Hazing. That's available on Amazon today. We call these episodes the Fraternity Foodie Podcast because there is nothing like great food to bring college students together. Fun fact, I submitted a ton of applications for jobs as I was getting ready to graduate from the university at Buffalo. And I so desperately wanted to stay in Buffalo to be with my friends and my girlfriend who lived in Buffalo at that time. So I sent my resume everywhere. And of course, I was a cold candidate coming through all of these job boards. It wasn't until I shook hands with an executive at a local job fair in Buffalo who happened to be working for the largest publicly traded finance company in the world. He took an interest in me and my story, and he flew me out to Dallas, Texas to meet their CEO and CFO. So let me tell you, getting a recommendation from inside the company made all the difference in the world for me. And eventually I was hired to work for another branch out in Long Island, New York. So the rest is history. Now, here to tell you more about how you can go from cold candidate to a red hot employee referral is Anish Majumdar. He is an introvert career coach who loves helping other people and making a difference. Here's the interesting thing. He hates schmoozing. Anish is in the top 1% of career experts on LinkedIn, and his team teaches clients how to use their system for generating high-ticket job offers that are 15 to 20 times faster than cold submitting your resume. And it's in a way that pays off across your entire career journey. They have over $600 million in offers secured in the past 3 years and have changed over 2,000 lives. He's been featured in Business Insider, Exec, and Fast Company. He's also the creator of LinkedHired System and LinkedHired Auto. Anish is a devoted husband and father to 3 young boys living in upstate New York, but he was born and raised in Montreal, Canada. Welcome to the show, Anish.
Thank you so much, Mike. And I'm super excited to be here. And I just want to let you know, like, this has been if I can send my message out to your audience now, this is I wish I had known some of what I hope to be able to share with you guys today. I hope it's really transformative.
I totally get it. I mean, you and I do what we do because we just want to give back and provide resources to students and recent college graduates that, maybe, we didn't have those kind of resources when we were going through trying to climb, this corporate ladder. And if we can help somebody and maybe, help our former self along the way, that just feels good, right?
Oh, I loved hearing your story about how you discovered and like this whole other way of kind of moving ahead, because I think we're very similar in that way. When I was certainly in college and for many years afterwards, I just looked at that whole thing of networking your way to a job, talking to a CEO, it was so intimidating. It honestly looked like someone might as well have been asking me to visit a foreign planet, and do it. It seemed so strange, and I wish I hadn't been as afeared, if you will, of the whole situation, because there really isn't much to be scared of there on the other side. But I didn't know that at the time,
Yeah, you're going to help out a lot of college students with your talk here today. There's no question about it. Now, I want to go back to when you were studying at Dawson College in Montreal. I'm wondering what made you choose this particular institution?
Oh man, so this is very interesting because at the time, okay, so 18 years old, at the time, I've perhaps several of the people you've been lucky enough to speak with, I've worn a lot of hats in my life. I'm 42 now. At 18, being an actor was my dream. I'd even the last couple of years of high school, I had to work out an alternate arrangement so I could tour with the Shakespeare in the Park company. I was fully committed to that. So Dawson College at the time, very controversial, coming up in a conservative Indian family, by the way. This whole career path seemed like absolute insanity. But that was an acting program there that I jumped into. Started that process of learning. After that, I went to another theater school in New York, and the world went into journalism and the rest. But Dawson was very interesting because, you know, I think back and I say the absolute insanity of asking someone who is a child what the major thrust of your life is. You don't know what the hell it is. You don't know. And with all due respect, you're not supposed to know, because life and God is supposed to teach you through your journey through life what it is that you do. You're not supposed to just like come out of it with a bolt in the blue. I understood that a little bit there, but really it was as much for me a time of gently getting out of that introvert shell a little bit, learning and understanding that there's parts of who I am that can really flourish in ways that I never thought possible. And to this day, you know, the interesting thing about the acting path that really, you know, kicked into high gear in Dawson, what I do today as a career coach, people are like, well, there's no relationship there. They could not be more wrong, because one of the biggest mistakes I see people making out there, and I think it's one that older professionals are actually more susceptible to than younger ones, is they completely divorce the human element. They get this weird, like, awful training that when I'm interviewing, nothing about who I am, nothing about what makes me unique, nothing about my unique value is there. I'm just going to sort of, you know, ignore that. And honestly, so much of getting an offer is understanding the behavior, is understanding, hey, what's really going on here? It's understanding, you know what, just because you're asking me a question doesn't mean that right now me responding passively to you is not the right play right now. Maybe I need to challenge you. I learned all of these things as an actor first, basically on movie sets. What I did a movie with Hugh Jackman. I learned, and I was crapping my pants because I had no self-esteem. I had no money at the time. But you have to find a way. You have to find a way to look someone in the eyes to say, hey, you know what? I can stand for something. I can do something. And if I fall, I fall. You know. That's where it started there. But my gosh, if you could have seen me then, I was probably very far away from a dad of three, man. I had a long trench coat from the Village de Valeur, the Value Village thrift shop. I was, you know, I have a writing career as well, so I had books of poetry stuffed in, and I was incredibly moody. I think that would probably be the best descriptor if you wanted to go back in time that way. But yeah. Dawson College in Montreal, man. A world and a lifetime ago.
I love it. You know what? I think everything happens for a reason, and everything just kind of builds in terms of your career. And, you know, listen, I was an accounting major in college, and then I got into the real world and found out that debits and credits are incredibly boring, and I couldn't use any of my creativity. You know, I wanted to be creating things, and you can't be creative as an accountant. Otherwise, you go to jail. And so, so for
That's
me,
true.
right? So for me, you know, eventually I found this path of working with fraternities and sororities and being up on a stage. But as a college student, just like you, as an introvert, there was no way I would be on a stage speaking to 4,000 college students. There's no way. So you just never know how things are going to play out. And clearly you found your path. But I think for the college students who are listening out there, understand that, you know, whatever your goal is, whatever the dream is, that might change depending on what curveballs come your way.
100%. You know, I think it really pays not to get too tied into just like one way of looking at yourself or one path. Like, in other words, I've worked with plenty of people over the years who, you know, we teach what I might consider to be a somewhat entrepreneurial way of getting ahead. But the people that we work with, many of them who have never considered themselves entrepreneurial at all, you know, a lot of our challenge is actually showing people, hey, you know, there's things that you can take from this path. The career coaching path as a creative, right? From the outside, I never would have thought that, there's a creative outlet in this path. I could not have been more wrong. Once I started getting into it, I'm like, the business of getting people free, it never gets old, because everyone is operating at a unique juncture of value, timing, experience, and all of that, you know? So this was entirely, I completely agree with you, a question of discovery. In fact, I remember a 54-year-old architect who, I remember talking with him, And this is what changed it in my mind to say, okay, you know what? This whole journey, I need to look at this in a different way. I need to take this seriously. At the time, I was just working, trying to put a resume or something together for him. And the guy started breaking down in tears, telling me that, he was going to get fired after 20 years, 20 plus years at his architectural firm. He had no equity. He had no idea what he was going to do. And he feels like a failure, I realized that this is not a resume issue and what's going on here in people's careers. The business of getting happy and fulfilled, it's not a second-rate concern. And it's also not going to, if you don't start looking at it and taking responsibility for it early, there's no third-party company boss on planet Earth who will ever give it to you. It's not possible.
So let's talk about how you do this, because you've helped thousands of professionals break free of this necessity of job searching permanently, not just temporarily, permanently. So you show people how to create a new job for themselves at their dream company. Explain to our audience how you do that.
So when we, and I'm the same way, when we are looking at the road ahead and saying, hey, you know what, I want a better job, I want to improve myself, or I want to move into a new career, usually what we'll do is we'll go on the job boards and we'll say, hey, what's out there? Maybe we'll do a little bit of research. Maybe you have a couple of, ideas of job titles or something that you want to look at. So you use those as the basis. The more experienced you go, the less and less of those roles there tends to be, up until the point of the C-suite, where we know that there's a ton of those opportunities, but they're just not making it into the boards. And also the other issue of this is that these job postings that you're seeing, if you a lot of times what I'll do is I'll just put on the hirer's kind of glasses for a second, look at it through a company's point of view. It is tremendously expensive to hire someone cold like that. The average is about 160% of what you're going to make in that first year is what it costs me as a company just to hire, right? So if I'm going to do that, I'm not going to do that as my first option. What I'm going to do, what almost every company does, is when the pain emerges, like maybe I have a growth pain, I have a marketing operations pain, whatever. Where it starts is at the senior level. And what happens at the senior level is that I ask you, all of us here at this level, look, before we go out into the hoi polloi here, who do you know? Because I don't want to be talking with anyone cold. This is the thing. The more juicy a role is, the more juicy an opportunity is, the less anyone wants you to come in cold, and it has nothing to do with how inexperienced you are. This is human nature. We want people who are warm. So I'm going to tap you guys, okay? And I'm going to say, hey, who do you know? Who do I know? And everyone who comes in here, okay, they get a very different experience of vying for this role. Each of them are treated in a different way. If it moves into a serious place, if they're able to do that, they're going to have usually an expedited kind of move towards that offer. That changes depending on the company, but the expediting thing never changes as long as you start at a certain level. So they tried this, okay? Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Oftentimes they'll hire someone, right? It doesn't work out. Okay. Now we got to go wider. So we'll go into the rest of the company. We'll say, hey, and we're seeing this, right? Across the board, almost every industry right now, incentivization of what is called internal hire, referred hires, is massive right now because it's cheaper, it's better, the retention is higher, the performance tends to be better. So I'm now looking at our entire company and I'm saying, hey, show us the guy. We need someone coming in, okay? It's not as good now because I don't know everyone here. So guess what? I'm going to start putting in some barriers. I'm going to say where I had 3 criteria for the job, now I have 10. Where I thought 1 interview or 2 meetings was going to do it, now I have 5. And I want Jim over there, in finance to talk about it as well. Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. Finally, we get to job posting. So the opportunity is old. We are tired. We have probably looked through people who we consider to be more qualified than you. But now is when you're first hearing about it. And the problem with that is now I'm forcing you to enter into a game of utter commoditization. I am forcing you, in order to play this game, make your resume generic, make your answers generic, even though most of the time the job posting I put together has nothing to do with the real pain. I'm saying, why would I put sensitive information about my company into Monster and Indeed? What am I, stupid? I'm gonna grab job postings from around the board, crib them, and do it. But that's the problem. See, you're gonna coming in cold, ready to go, right? Let me cater to these pain points. Let me come up with aspects of my experience that go to what it is. But here's the problem. If you came in cold, so the respect is very hard. It's almost impossible to upwards negotiate. it's very, very hard for you to differentiate yourself in any way in that way. But the most damaging thing is when you start like that based on a job posting, the odds of you being able to identify what is really going on. There's only maybe 2 to 3 major bleeding parts of very sensitive pain that is driving any hire. That's the only reason, okay? If you can't find that out, and it is unlikely that you're going to be able to do that usually in a structured environment like that, then it doesn't matter how qualified you are. Like, even if you get the role, you were never smart enough to find out what was really happening here. You were just the best of our candidates that we moved through an artificial process. I'm going to micromanage the heck out of you. I'm going to lowball the heck out of you. And when it's time to discard you, I'm going to do it because, listen, you were never able to advocate for yourself in anything higher than just another 9-to-5er, just another person washing through, you know? And so, what I discovered, again, similar to what you're talking about, in my days as a journalist, after 7 years as a professional actor, I moved into writing and all of that. I was freelancing and again, just doing this, just knocking on doors, and I just got so frustrated. I did what in the business you're not supposed to. You're never supposed to, as a writer, just pick up the phone and call the editor-in-chief of a magazine. But that's exactly what I did. I spent 25 minutes not pitching, not presenting, just listening, trying to understanding, oh, I actually don't need to pitch so much because they already have an editorial calendar. Oh, what this person wants is not another Joe Schmo knocking on the door. What they want is respect. What they want is admiration. And what they want is a unique form of value exchange. 25 minutes, I was out there with the best assignment that I'd had all year. And I remember hanging up that phone and realizing, oh, so the challenge now is going to be unlearning. It's going to be like realizing, okay, we got to stop being as much of a good student. We got to stop with that stuff. Like sometimes you graduate past games and I'm no longer, right, a fresh college graduate. And the truth is, if I had known and if I had started doing it a different way, going back to the question of, securing jobs in a different way. What I found is that when you start this process of asking yourself, hey, how can I build relationships at this level? How can I dialogue? It's not that you can't get jobs through the other way, but the analogy is sort of like if you went through the trouble of figuring out how to pilot a jet and your destination right now is China, right? Yes, there's a bike that's there, but how is this a smart move for you to be wasting your time at your age, at your level in your career, sitting down, taking the bike? That's not where you want to go, right? So that's what the job postings is. Most of the people we work with, we're not asking them to stop answering the job postings. They'll choose to do it. Right? Any more than if you are a hardcore addict and you give heroin or methadone, I would imagine you're going for the heroin, right? If that's what you want the real deal, right? So it's not rocket science, but honestly, the fact that if we're going to be totally honest, Mike, most of what we've learned about answering a job, the only reason we ever even did it that way was because of insecurity. You said to yourself, or I said to myself, I'm not good enough, so let me put together my stupid resume. I'm not good enough to talk to a CEO, so let me give it to the secretary. I'm not good enough to do this. It's all based on insecurity. And the truth is, they're not special people. Like, executives are not highfalutin people. They're just people like me and you who learned how to leverage what sets them apart. That's the difference.
Yeah,
they learned how to leverage it, right?
That is absolutely mind-blowing. And I think you're absolutely right. I think, we think that we don't belong in the room or we don't belong in that job. So we're going to put together a resume, give it to the secretary instead of talking to the CEO. So our college students who are listening right now, I'm sure they're intimidated having conversations with the CEO of a company. So what is the right way to have a dialogue with somebody who's the CEO of a company?
I think the pitfall that I see people falling into, and not just out of college, but actually, if it helps, all throughout, okay? Because there's tons of people who have made successes in their lives, but they still feel this intimidation. I work with Indian people who moved from India, have made millions in tech, right? But and they're almost at the C-suite. But the idea of talking directly without a go-between is very, crushing. So it affects all across. The pitfall is this. Again, looking at human nature, when we see someone and we're like, oh my gosh, look at this person, the impulse is I gotta come across as impressive. I have to say things, I have to do things to show that I'm worthy of this person's time, to show that that's there. If you can fight that and actually have the courage to say, okay, if I'm starting out my career in this path, I'm starting out my career. If I'm building a relationship with this person, I don't have to, nor should I pretend that I have some highfalutin history or something like that. Be who you are, which is, if you're interested in this person because this is a pathway and a journey that resonates with you, talk just 2 or 3 lines about that and ask, hey, could I talk to you for 15 or 20 minutes just to learn a little bit more about your journey? I'd really appreciate that. The important thing is, avoid trying to impress, actually do the opposite. Come in there, because one of the biggest ways to give value to someone that we don't take seriously is respect, learning, and holding up what's called a mirror. Most of these executives, right, they are going through most of their day making decisions, figuring things out. And if they're talking with people, they're talking with either people on the payroll or people who are at a level where they cannot be honest about what their thinking is and what's going on. If you come in, right, as someone who's saying, look, your journey resonates with me. I see these amazing parallels in what you've done. Tell me about, how did you make this move? What gave you the balls to do that outside of college yourself? How did you avoid making this mistake? Take an interest before the meeting. The best investment you can do, don't look at your resume at all. Look at this person's LinkedIn profile. Ask yourself, what if I was like almost on a first date with this person, what would be questions I could ask about this person? If I was like, I was loving this person's journey, what's interesting, what's there? Make it all about the other person. Make sure the other person spends most of their time talking. If they ask, hey, are you looking for a job? Soft sell it, right? Yep. Of course I am. I mean, I'm looking for a way, but I want to be very clear here. You know, I'm just getting to know you. My number one thing is building this relationship. That's my number one thing. If we're able to explore, of course, man, I'm fresh out of college here, you know? Like, if I have the opportunity to work with you, of course I will. But that's not what my immediate goal here is, okay? So it's the push and pull, which I discovered after, you know, so many, because I trial and errored all of this stuff, you know? What I realized was the double punch of, they're expecting strong personality like this. You see openness, you see humbleness, you say, I'm ready to listen, right? And they're expecting you to give them information, all that. Nope, I want to hear from you. I want to hear you talk. This was one of the most counterintuitive things ever, was understanding that these people who I was dying to say what was the right words to come out of my mouth, the best words that could come out of my mouth was absolute silence, was to actually set up an energy, a flow where I felt comfortable enough being exactly who I was, and I'm here openly to learn. I learned this also, by the way, as an accident, talking about no accidents in our journey. As a journalist, I learned this as well, because I would often get assignments to interview people who were very media savvy, right? And these people are very, very difficult because they understand the game of not being honest with you and arcing it towards talking points, right? The thing that allowed me to get kind of access that other people wouldn't was no major strategy, except literally me being like, holy cow, dude, this is your life? This is what you're doing? What is this? How are you even having time for ideas? How are you even time with your family, right? I like just being open and not trying to be too cool for school has gotten me further faster than probably, I don't know, man, take your pick of the Joe Blows out there with their hacks, you know? Hacks disappear. Respect never does, and having an idea of how you want to handle that first interaction, make the payoff the interaction itself. Don't make it, maybe I'll get a job. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But the more you allow the moment in the relationship to breathe, and the more you allow yourself to say, hey, I'm just starting out. I don't have to have all the answers, but I have ways that I can add value here. And if you can pay attention to what I'm saying here, trust me, this is massive value. You're going to have lifetime relationships out of these people, whether you go into an offer or not, which is one of these things about treating this job search in a kind of, you know, endlessly sustainable, recyclable way in some sense. You know, most people when they're out there, you know, you get close to a job, you get rejected. Now you feel awkward about reaching out ever to any of these people that you got to know. But these are powerful people. These are people who it would behoove you to know, right? It would behoove them to know you. So if you can play it in this way, if they know for a fact that you're not a transactional person, which is what the danger of networking only on the basis of a job is, which is the big one and the big reason why employment fresh out of college tends to be stalled out. It's not because of the degree you picked or blah, 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 blah. Those things can be moved around. It's this over-reliance on the third party, the online and all that. And I'm a big LinkedIn guy myself, but honestly, the more you're talking to people, the more you're talking to people who intimidate you even if you're falling flat on your face, that is the hallmark of you moving at light speed towards your career. Truly, no hesitation there.
Yeah, amazing tips. I love it. And you're a big LinkedIn guy. So I'm wondering, is there something specific that our college students can do to
Mm-hmm.
secure a job right now using LinkedIn?
Yeah, there's something really great that you can do that took me several years to start piecing together. So LinkedIn, very trusted by employers. It's very trusted by executives as well. Now, one of the beyond outreach, which means like targeting people in industries, reaching out to them, dialoguing with them, one of the other most effective things that anyone can do at this stage, excuse me, is to ramp up some engagement. But now the question is, okay, I'm fresh out of college, right? What the heck do I engage about? Like, what do I write about, especially on a place like LinkedIn? Because it's not, it's not Facebook. It's not meant to be social media. Here's what I've discovered, okay? Again, talking about leaning into the situation that you're in right now instead of trying to bend and contort into something that you're not. Share the learning journey, right? So when LinkedIn started really leaping out for me and started really delivering ROI, it was when I stopped trying to think of it in terms of, okay, I got to come up with some kind of post that's going to somehow get the right people to talk to me. And I just started saying, look, every week I'm spending like at least an hour and a half to 2 hours, no matter how busy I am, reading about my industry, reading about leaders, trying to just sort of come up to date. So why don't I just start sharing the learning journey? In other words, if I'm spending this time anyway, I'm not asking for an additional minute of your time to do any social media stuff. I'm not a big believer in that. I don't think that you're going to habitualize that unless it's already something that's habitualized. At least that's my point of view wherever possible. So if I say to myself, look, I'm spending that time, fine. I'll have LinkedIn up, or I'll have Hootsuite or Buffer up or something like that where you can sync up these posts beforehand. And as I'm learning, in real time, I'm learning, I'm getting ideas. Oh, I don't know if I disagree with that. Ooh, what about this? Ooh, let me share this. I'm thinking about, and this is true for any one of you, whatever your pathway is, you're going to rapidly develop a zone of influence and authority that is your own. That's a combination of your experience, the way that you look at the world, etc. That's your, if you will, expert's point of view. What makes engagement on somewhere like LinkedIn work really well, and what will turbocharge your relationship building, is to think, okay, I'm learning all of this as an expert. Where's the line where I can share this with anyone, any of the professionals in my network, where it would be interesting, where they would have value, right? If I'm in digital transformation, I don't only have to be talking about digital transformation. I can be looking at any leaders in any business who are doing things differently, who are executing in a different paradigm. I can share this paradigm. I can talk about this paradigm. I can create a little poll, say, hey, I want to hear from everyone who's in IT in my network right now, right? This is the number one thing that's going on here. I personally believe, one here, what do you guys think? You could even be like, hey, I'm starting out. I want to hear from the people I'm lucky enough to be connected with who are way more senior than I am. This is something I don't see people who are a little bit younger on in their professional careers doing as much, because I feel like there's a sense of like, oh, again, I got to be too cool for school, or I got to like pretend to have more than I'm not. Ask people in your network who are older than you. Ask for their opinion. Ask for what their experience has been, what their journey has been. They've paid a lot of dues to get to where they are, and just you taking that time to do that is going to massively deepen the relationship itself, and you're going to find yourself, in that open zone. Also, these conversations, learn from them. Like, if it doesn't go into a job offer, that's fine, but you have to understand. Like, I was. Mike, I came up in a very dysfunctional family environment. I had a mom who was schizophrenic. As I got older, I feel like I learned a lot from my wife and all that, but I honestly felt that much of my adult life has been spent playing catch up in terms of learning, hey, how do you have normal relationships? How do you have the flow? I learned so much of the practical logistics through these quote unquote professional calls, because when I spoke to these people who were at a completely different level, I didn't have any ego about it. I wanted to learn, like, hey, I can see you've got a close relationship with your son, right? How did you do it, right? Your son's 24 years old. My son's 3, right? What did you do when he was 3 that enabled you to do it? Because I know the kind of hours you're working. What was your secret? What's going on there, right? I learned how to invest. I wanted to soak up everything about what was going on at that strata, because not only did I not want to be a stranger to it, I was willing, ready, and able to take the information that I was learning in all of these places. This is one of the most powerful things someone out of college can do. you're not going to have the experience card to play, not in a huge way in all likelihood. But here's what you can use. If you're having, even if 50% of your job search is diversified a little bit like this, right? You can use the conversations you're having at this strata, because the dirty secret is, in any industry, if you're talking to these people, you're going to understand there's commonalities, that there's a finite number of pain points here. There's a finite number of priorities, right? And here's the thing. You're talking to, let's say, CEOs and COOs and CSOs at this strata, right? All in this industry, but they're not. They might be at a higher, like, quote unquote, level in your career, but they don't have the massive communication gain of being able to say, okay, we're an early stage company here. This is what Amazon is doing at a completely different stage. Wait a minute. Why are they doing it? What's the parallel? What can we use, right? They don't have that, but you do. As long as you start talking about this stuff, when you start exploring or you start saying, hey, what's going on? Or if you're exploring an existing opportunity, one of the most powerful things you can do is say, this seems very similar to a conversation I was having with the COO of this, or the SVP of manufacturing at this competitor. And it's very interesting because what they're experiencing is very, very, very similar here. Now, without you having said one word about strictly your candidacy, all sorts of wonderful authority things are happening there, because now it's like, what? This guy's fresh out of college? How the hell is he getting access over here? How's he talking to these people, right? This is the human aspect, right, of this. Hiring is like sales, in that the decision to hire you is fundamentally emotional driven, and then afterwards, the resume, the brand, the way you handled yourself in the interview, these are things that we use to say, I was right. You know what I mean? Like my normal point of view was absolutely right. So use that charm. Use that. If you don't know, one of the most charming things is to talk to someone very, very experienced and to be like, you know what? That's the first time I've ever heard that. Like, I've never heard that before. Can you tell me a little bit about that, dude? They love it. A leader wants to be a teacher. They don't want to be a dictator, Don't make them be a dictator and either force you out or force you in. Let them be a teacher, right? Show them respect. Show them like, wow, I want parts of what you're having here. I don't want to compete with you. I don't want to do anything like that. I want to learn, right? And it opened up doors like nothing else, man. And look at me, I'm a gangly 6'1" Indian guy. You know what I mean? I didn't have any connections, and you look like a pretty self-made guy yourself. Like how you got to get creative. So I promise you, like I must have tried every single thing, but these simple human things that don't really change, they'll work now. They'll continue to work 10, 20, 50 years down the line.
So smart. The advice you're giving is really gold for college students. So you're really helping them to kind of turbocharge their career, which I think is great. One other question I had for you is, what do you do if you're underpaid? What if you're not getting the kind of money that you should be getting in your job?
The way that people will often choose to address that is they'll look at it and say, okay, so I must be doing something wrong here, because everything else is here, the experience is there. For some reason, I'm just not getting it. Mm-hmm. And so what we'll usually do is we'll go towards additional training, we'll go towards additional education, we'll try to find ways to increase these sort of like deep, aspects of our worth as a candidate. But the thing that we don't really look at is that all of us, we know about the importance of, training, et cetera, all that, for sure, okay? But what we don't look at is what you have, right now, is it actually reaching the mainland? In other words, it in some sense, it doesn't matter how beautiful the credentials are or how perfect the fit is or unique your process is. If I'm not getting these messages to the mainland of the people that you want to be talking with, the people who are there, you're going to be underpaid. You're going to be undervalued, right? And this can happen off the bat. It can also happen, by the way, I'm working with someone right now who he started out in a relatively high value prop, exceeded his expectations over 4 years, but here's what started happening. He started doing amazing, but there was no real outlet to talk about it. There was no real outlet to tie in these accomplishments from him and his team into the larger company. So it just became, hey, part of his job. Then they started giving him and his team responsibilities that had nothing to do with his department, right? They somehow made that happen, right? They finally got to a place where they're cutting people, and he's like, I don't understand. Like, we did everything right? But the thing is, if the communication is not there, it's going to falter. So what can you do? One of the most powerful things is instead of like looking at whether you're currently hired or whether you're looking to correct an underpayment type situation, don't look at the job postings, don't look at the company information. What I would suggest, all right, if you're looking to make up for an underpayment situation and you're currently employed, the two things you want to look at is making communication with your boss, the people who can actually help you here. You want to make that communication boring, and by how common it is, and you want to make sure that you understand, okay? At the very least, at the start of every month, all right, a simple email will do this. You want to make sure that you understand that of those 5 or 10 things or 15 things that you and your people have to do, what you want to know is what is important to this individual, okay? Because out of those 15, it might be 2, it might be 3, and people get fired and people get underpaid all the time by focusing on the wrong 9, by focusing on the wrong 10, right? All this time you could have ignored 70% of this stuff. You wanted to be a good student about it, right? You wanted to like be there, but that's not the world we live in here, right? 20% of anything you do is the 80% of the value of that job. You have to find that 20% and be ruthless about killing the other 80. That's my opinion on it, right? So if I'm here and I'm doing this, what I want to do is I want to say, okay, accountability. I want to make sure that I am in line with my boss. I want to understand what those strategic priorities are. And as we're in line with that, what I want to do is in my updates, in my communications with this person, I want to do everything possible to move the focus away from the nuts and bolts, the logistical details of what we do into the why. Right? In other words, now that I know that these are the priorities, let's talk a little bit more about why. What are we trying to accomplish with this? What are we trying to do? The more your conversation with your boss moves into a realm that he or she understands in a strategic lens, as opposed to just, the higher lens, the better it's going to be for you, the easier it's going to be for you to advocate. And in line with that, if you look at your brand and you say underpayment, almost always you can make a big uptick in the brand itself. Again, don't look at the job postings. They're not going to help you here. But look at people who are not 1 or 2. Look at people who are like 3 or 4 levels up, Study their journey and start branding and drifting yourself based on what you're seeing there, right? There are commonalities, right? If I am a chief marketing officer or if I'm a marketing director, I can and should be looking not just at like chief marketing officers, but ask yourself, what does a marketer get paid for? Not for marketing. They get paid to grow the business. They get paid to essentially, at their highest, be a strategic partner to the business. So anyone who is at the strata of driving growth, right? Who at driving innovation, of reinvention, right? These are people that I can be thinking about. And if you build what's called a little bit of anyone can do this, a LinkedIn competitor list, right? Start building a little bit of your bullet list of people that make you nervous, Bullet list of people where you're like, wow, like that's really... Make sure they're interesting. Have a list. You can start with 15 or 20. The time will never be wasted because not only will it help you, you can use these clues to model parts of your LinkedIn profile, of course, etc. But more than that, if you can get into the habit at the start of a job search or when correcting underpayment to target individuals, real people, the real people who are there, you stand a far, far better chance of not just advocating for yourself, but externally, when you're in job posting mode or whatever, even if you're doing it in the traditional way, right? If what you use as your barometer, okay, for positioning your brand, it's one of the great secrets. If what you do is you benchmark the real people who are there, the real strata there, and you say, oh, there's a commonality here. Here's a commonality. I can use these, right? That tends to be a strategy that will prevent you in most cases having to seriously go back and do the thing that all drives us all crazy, which is reinvent my resume just for a job posting, right? You're going to find through studying the actual people the commonalities of theme, of keywords, of skill set, of value, because that you can use. And again, the earlier you can start looking at some of these things, the better, right? Not saying be someone you're not, but in our day and age, we're so lucky, because I know it looks like it's such a noisy environment out there, but the noise is opportunity because right here, I've never seen, across the board, I've never seen more companies, more good people trying to do good stuff and understanding, in a way that I don't think we all did even a few years ago. Now there's a real understanding that, okay, the most fundamental things we take for granted can be ripped to shreds in every single company and in every single industry. So we cannot be static, and the people who we can ride with are going to be the people who are the most quick and mentally agile, the people who are not just stuck in one way of looking at themselves, one industry, one thing. Okay, the people who are going to win are the people who are like, dude, I have a way forward, I want to do this however I can make this impact happen. Let's do it. Pirates, sharks in some sense. But I found that to be the world of the pirates and sharks is one that is infinitely more hospitable to individuals. I like the company man days. If you look beneath the surface of that, okay, yes, I had job security, quote unquote, but there were so many negatives there. There was such pressure there. And now you don't have to work at any company for 5, 10, 15 years to get your legitimacy. You can literally job hop your entire career now. You can literally go anywhere you want in the world. You can experiment with any industry that you want. You can take as many risks as you want. The only way you're going to be judged is if I look at you and I say, why is this guy playing so small? Like, why, when this guy could be going for a $250,000 role, why is he being prudent and coming in at 195? Why, when he could be an SVP, why is he don't be prudent, okay? When it comes to a job search, we're talking about America here, man. Go big, all right? Go for what you want, right? Go for what's there. I'm telling you, this is the time where if you're interested in rapid, non-linear growth, mentally speaking, this is the time where fortunes can be made and amazing starts can be had. Like stuff that I would have given my right arm or maybe my left genitalia to avoid the waiter jobs and all of that. If you're you can really put yourself into a position here where working remotely, working hybridly, you're really in the mix and you're operating strategically at a level that, and you're using your age, you're using the stuff that as a competitive differentiator. You can do this now. The cross-pollination between levels and hierarchies is more than it has ever been, right? Which means that the opportunities to learn and leapfrog for people is also higher than it's ever been.
This is pure genius. I'm sure all of our listeners are going to go back, listen to this 2 or 3 times because you're giving them so much good information. And so they're going to have to go back and listen to it over and over again. This has been absolutely fantastic. Now, I have to tell you, I miss all the food in Buffalo, New York. I know you're living in Rochester. And
Yeah.
The next time I'm in Western New York, which is at least a couple of times a year, I want to know where I should go in order to get a great meal in Rochester. And if you tell me it's a garbage plate at Nick Tahoe's, I'm going to know there's something wrong here.
Yeah, that's true. That is, I have had a garbage plate. I have enjoyed a garbage plate. I would never, ever, ever consider that the height of dining or anything really. But it's good when you need it. There's a great place here called New York Beer Project, which I go to with my wife and our kids, and we just love it just because it has a very relaxed, kind of vibe. There's also a bar called the Old Toad, which has this trivia night that I get smoked on, every Monday. But it's a place that in Rochester I'll go to. It's like, where am I? I mean, I'm like, is this London, England? What is going on? Like, the whole thing is just a complete time warp and a space warp. And weirdly enough, in the somewhat slimy denizens of this place, but very comfortable, I've had some of my, hopefully some of the best ideas. It's weird how when you're at ease, you're in a place of comfort. You can kind of let that go. And I would certainly say for the amazing listeners of your show who are currently kind of like they got that eye open in terms of what they want to do next, don't be afraid in the midst of all of this. Take those times, okay? When you're looking to find something better, this is the time where you don't want to be the guy whipping himself. You want to be the guy who is ridiculously kind to himself. Even if it's not a money thing, now is the time where you want to think back on the journey. You want to celebrate the 100 things that you've done to get here. Now's the time where you want people to see the man, the woman that you are, who has already succeeded 100,000 times in order to have this opportunity. So don't sweat it now, man. For you to be here, for you to be looking at this already, massive mountains have been climbed, So do what one of my clients said, which he said, Anish, look at the job search as the last big scarecrow. It looks so scary out there. It looks crazy. I don't know. And every insecurity you have is kind of popping up when you look at that. But when you get closer and you get closer and you get closer, you realize, wow, it's just a scarecrow, and behind that, there's a ton of people who need your help, you know? And if you're willing to just take a couple of extra steps beyond someone else to say, hey, I'm willing to listen, I'm willing to learn, I'm willing to help. I promise you, you take my word for this, your life is going to change fast.
I love it. Great message there, Anish. So if our students want to work with you and get coaching help, maybe to find their dream job, get a higher salary, whatever their goals are, where should they go in order to connect with you?
Well, I got three juicy things for them. One, there's a special link I have called Tap the Hidden Job Market /ASAP. And it's a small link, but if you go there, it'll give you exclusive access to our latest training session. It's about an hour long, and what it'll do is, for anyone who's interested, it'll give me a chance to really go deep and teach you the major beats of this strategy so you can start implementing this stuff and you can start using it. We've had people that we haven't even coached who have taken that deep training, run with it, and have shared many success stories. So would be more than happy if for those who are interested there. HelloAnish.com is our kind of HQ in terms of career trainings, videos, etc. And then I guess the last one would be if you're on LinkedIn, especially if you're intimidated by LinkedIn, hop on over, put in the word Anish, put in the word career. I'll probably be the only one who pops in. Hey, shoot me up with a follow. I'm always sharing advice as well as wins and tips directly from our clients every day about what's actually working out there, what's not, and how to keep you safe. So would welcome that. And I'm sending out the positive vibes, the love, and the excitement to each and every one of your listeners, man. I mean, you have something very special here, and I really hope that it encourages everyone listening here to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, all right, I'm going to be a little ballsier here. No problem. You know what? I'm going to be a little more aggressive here. I know I've been hearing all this stuff, the Great Resignation and all this other stuff. I get it, okay? But this is a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know, to start your career, to do it the right way. This is something sacred, you know, like don't get it twisted. Just because there's other grads and all that does not mean your journey is not sacred. Does not mean your time right here is one of one, you know. Treat it that way and you're going to see wonderful results.
This is fantastic. I love following guys like you on LinkedIn because you always have such great information, and I get these tips when I'm not even expecting it. So I love the information that you share. Go and check out helloanish.com, and that way you can go and check everything out over there, connect, and get all the information that you need so that way you can be successful after you graduate college and then for the rest of your career. Here you got them right here. Anish is ready to help you. So I really appreciate this. This has been so much fun. And what can I say? Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Oh, Mike, it's such a pleasure, man. I mean, please keep doing what you're doing as well to spread the good word, to spread the amazing information, and to keep making a difference, man. I mean, it inspires me to know that there's also fellow people like you who are, you know, really carving out an amazing, incredible, singular life path and life journey, man. Much respect to what you're doing, and what a pleasure it was to speak with you. I hope it was helpful.
Oh, this has been a blast. I really appreciate it. To all of our listeners, make sure you like this interview. Make sure you share it with other college students that are looking to get their dream job. And we will see you on the next episode of the Fraternity Foodie Podcast. Thanks so much for checking us out. We'll see you next time.